Hello there, welcome to Football-Oranje, your home of Dutch football in the English language. I'm Michael and I'm joined by Mike. We're going to be talking about Ajax 2, PSV 2, the first topper in the Eredivisie this season, and thoroughly enjoyable game, wasn't it, Mike?
Oh yeah, it was great from start to finish. I think that PSV's early goals really helped the game as well. I think that really pushed Ajax to try and get equalisers as well. I think it was two top teams, very even teams going at each other. Yeah, I think it was a great advert for the Eredivisie, and I think that in the end, a 2-2 draw was probably a fair result.
Now, I know I don't normally do these sort of podcasts after the game, but it's such a big game. And if you are watching or listening to this and you're thinking, wow, I really want more of these, then do make sure to hit the like button and drop us a comment to say that you would like more of these, because we know that this month in January, the Eredivisie is going to have lots of these big games. Ajax final, for example, is next weekend. Lots more big games to come. So yeah, do let us know if you want to listen to more of these. And yeah, Mike, I do agree. Like, it was just thoroughly enjoyable from start to finish, and it was great to see the top two sort of pit against each other, because this season we've seen a lot of games where Ajax or PSV dominate and there's not a lot of competition within the game, whereas today really showed us what both teams were potentially made out of. And in my opinion, I think PSV shaded it. And I know that Ajax had a really strong second half, and I know that we'll talk a bit more about the tactical side of the game in a minute. But for me, I think PSV looked the better of the two teams and could be going on to win the Eredivisie title at this rate.
Yeah, I think that for me, I've said for the past few weeks that PSV are my favourites as well. I think that they turned up today looking to hit Ajax quickly, and they did. I think that the early goals really helped them. Malin's flick for Zahavi's first one was excellent. I think them two as a partnership up front really worked well today. I think that maybe they'll have some regrets of going so defensive after going 2-0 ahead so early. I think that they sat back and just allowed Ajax to come at them. And when you give Ajax that much possession and time around your box, then they're always going to score. And that's what happened in the second half. I think they looked a bit nervy at times, and Ajax got the second goal. I think Haller came on, he did well. I think it was really bad defending for that second goal. The clearance didn't go as far as it should have. But then, yeah, later on, it was PSV that had maybe the best chance to win it at the end. I think Rensch got in there with a great clearance just before it was going to get tapped in by the PSV attack. But for me, yeah, I think it's a missed opportunity for PSV. I think that after the two goals, they went too defensive. And then in the second half, I think Schmidt just tried to shut the game down, went with very defensive substitution as well. I think Madueke came on too late, and when he did, he was isolated on his own up front. Although I do think that he was guilty of being a bit soft near the end when he was played in on goal. He got the better of Shears and then went down after a really soft challenge. So yeah, I think that PSV probably be happier with their performance today, but I think it's also a missed opportunity for them. But I'd just like to say, I think that Bjorn Kuipers had a great game refereeing. I think he let some of the challenges go. I think he handled it really well.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff from the referee, and it was a really high quality game. And I do agree with you that I think PSV sort of crumbled a bit in the second half. But let's go back to the start of the game, and it was a surprise to see, in my opinion, PSV line up with Marlon and Zahavi up front, the two strikers. And I know that Roger Schmidt likes to have a 4-4-2 or more of a 4-2-2-2 formation this season, but I was surprised to see him do it against Ajax, because Marlon and Zahavi aren't exactly strikers that help out in the midfield too much unless you play them out in the wing, so that they're kind of out and out strikers really. And it worked. The goal came within this first few minutes, and it was Marlon and Zahavi linking up for Zahavi's goal. What a start it was for PSV, and that decision to play the two strikers really paid off for Schmidt.
Yeah, it did. And them two, so far this season, haven't really clicked. For me, Zahavi's only scored, I think, one goal before today in the Eredivisie. But today they were excellent. They seemed to be able to connect perfectly on the counter, Malin's pace, and Zahavi's managed to get him behind twice. And yeah, I think that the two of them together works really well today. And I think that we're going to see more of it going forward. Well, it's a bit of a shame that Madueke didn't start. I think his pace as well would have been a threat. I think Gakpo had a quiet game considering his form recently. And I had to sort of tired towards the end as well before he got substituted. But yeah, I think that Malin and Zahavi looked good, and then we'll see if that continues, because if they click as well as they did today against Ajax's defence, then they're going to click against worse defences in the coming weeks, and it should result in more goals for PSV.
Yeah, you think that they're going to now link up a lot better. If they can both stay fit, they're going to be a great partnership. And it just kept going and going, and that's what led to 2-0 as well. Anthony gave the ball away, and then it was Zahavi and Marlon yet again that were linking up for the goal. It was so far so good for PSV. What was going on from an Ajax point of view though, Mike? And if you do want to leave us a comment, by the way, if you're watching this live or if you're watching this after we've gone live, do send your comments in, whether you're for PSV or whether for Ajax. Let us know what you thought of the game. But I thought that, Ajax was like how Ajax been playing in the first halves of games against weaker opposition. But of course, coming up against PSV, you can't play in second or third gear. You've got to really step it up, and they just didn't.
Yeah, I think that they're a bit shell-shocked by the early goal. I think that really surprised them and put them off their game for a while. And that's why I think that PSV really missed the opportunity to attack, because I think that Ajax might have crumbled. Whereas because they sat back so deep after the second goal, that's allowed Ajax to come into their game and get a bit more confidence. Eventually, it resulted in the goal that Promes scored.
Yeah, it was a sign of them getting back into the game. They hit the post, and then shortly after that, Tadic shut up Promes. And it was nearly 3-1 to PSV just to stroke of half time. It's just saying about Itara, and he just had a really quiet game, but he nearly set up Zahavi right before half time. It was a very strong position for Schmidt, and this might be a good opportunity to bring in one of the comments we had about Schmidt and half times, and it's from Abdul. Have you noticed that PSV always decline in the second half under Schmidt? Why? And it happened in the Europa League as well. Now, just before we came on, Mike and I were actually discussing this, and it's hard to think of too many performances where PSV have crumbled in the second half. Actually, there's a good example in the Europa League where they were 2-0 down and then won 3-2 against PAOK. So what do you think about that comment, Mike? Is there some sort of substance to that?
No, again, it's. I think in previous games in the Europa League, I think they've won games late on. I think Malin scored a really late goal in one of their games, I think against Apoel. So in the Europa League, I think they have done better in second halves. But I think in today's game, you could make an argument that they crumbled in the second half. I think Schmidt was a bit at fault for that. I think his substitutions were very defensive. But I've not really noticed that throughout the season so far. I think that Schmidt's done quite well so far, and sometimes changing games in the second half. But today, he maybe didn't make the right substitutions at the right time, for me anyway.
Well, one of the first substitutions to come on was Sebastian Haller at half time. What a signing that is for Ajax, Mike, and he did have an impact, didn't he? I mean, he scored within a few minutes. He was only marginally offside. Yeah,
I think it's weird on Twitter. You sometimes see a bit of backlash for this signing, but when you consider that in the first half, Ajax are playing Labiad as a shadow striker, which just didn't work out at all well, and then you bring on Haller, and you can see the link-up play that he brought, which is much better. I think he was unlucky with his goal. It was marginally offside. And he did well to set up the equaliser as well. I think he's going to be an excellent signing. I mean, this was him against PSV's defence, which were one of the best in the league. And Haller, for Utrecht, scored bags of goals in the Eredivisie. And I think that the amount of chances that Ajax will create in the games against the lesser teams, Haller's going to score bags of goals. I think it's a really good signing.
Yeah, I do agree. I think it's great for them to actually persuade him to come to Ajax. They're obviously paying him a pretty penny. He's not going there on the cheap. But it surprised me that he was going back to the Eredivisie. He said he didn't see it as a step down. I guess if you're playing in Europe, then it's not a step down. But yeah, he's going to definitely be scoring goals in the Eredivisie now that he's back. And of course, under Erik ten Hag, where he had a great time at Utrecht, and he's back with that same coach again. And as we were just saying, yeah, he had that impact, and he did actually set up the second goal for Ajax, setting up Antony's strike. What did you think of Antony's performance, Mike? Because I think that he was in and out of the game, but ultimately was important in the 2-2 draw.
I thought he was terrible first half. Gave away the goal, gave away the ball for the second PSV goal, gave away the ball for the chance right at the end. Zahavi maybe should have made it 3-1. He was frustrated, couldn't get into the game. But then, turns up and scores the equalising goal. It's a lovely finish. So he is important for the game. I think for me, so far this season, he's not turned up in any Champions League games. I think he's done really well in the Eredivisie when Ajax are playing lesser teams. We'll see how he does in the next couple of weeks against the likes of Feyenoord and AZ. I think that's a real challenge for him. But I think he was very, very anonymous until he actually got the equaliser.
The games are going to come very thick and fast for Ajax, and they're not against weak opposition either. They've got Twente in the midweek, they've got Feyenoord at the weekend, they've got RZ in the cup after that. Just game after game of top quality sides coming up. And it's interesting to see how good these players are. Players such as Anthony, who had quite a poor game really up until his goal. But he was important in the end. And then the game just sort of went quite scrappy, didn't it? And this is where I think we can be quite critical of Schmidt's tactics, because he was quite negative. He did bring off his forward players and replace them with midfielders. I know I think they were partly injured, but the fact that he brought on some midfielders instead of his strikers kind of said how Schmidt wanted the game to go for that closing stages. He wasn't going to go and throw another striker in the hope of getting all 3 points. I think he was quite happy with the points in the end. And I think that actually kind of rubbed off on the PSV players. They appeared a little bit nervous, actually.
Yeah, I think that when you saw the substitutions that he first made, you knew he was going for a draw. I think if Madueke was the first one to come on, then they might have been a bit more attacking. But 2 defensive substitutions straight off. I don't really rate Ryan Thomas, so him being the first one that comes on, that's just seemed to me that Schmidt was like, let's close this up, not go for it. I think Malin was slightly injured. I think he indicated they had to come off, which was a shame because he could have maybe made an impact late in the game, especially with Madueke as a partner. But Schmidt definitely went for defensive. He had Joe Perreault on the bench. He's done well when he comes on. He's a striker, so if you went for him, then maybe that would indicate that he was trying to win the game. But I think if you're PSV and you're going to Ajax and you get a 2-2 draw, it's a good result. It keeps it to 1 point. Ajax got tough games to come. I think that Schmidt was probably just like happy with a point, get away, and then see where he goes. And by the end of the month, PSV could be top, and then you could say that this was a great point for them.
That's a really good point. Certainly not one that came across my head. The fact that Ajax have got these difficult fixtures, and PSV could well be top and maybe a few points clear if they can win their games. It's nice if they got an easy run, but they've definitely got easy games in Ajax. So probably a very good point for them. We've got a couple of comments about players. Let's put them up on the screen. We've got one from Alex. What did you think of Rosario's performance? Haven't seen the numbers, but he was everywhere in midfield. Thought he was excellent. Before I hand over to you, Mike, I think that Rosario's coming for a lot of criticism, hasn't he? But this season has actually been getting a lot better. And someone who reminds me of Leroy Fair in some ways, in the way that he bullies people out of the way and just keeps the game very simple when he's got the ball at his feet.
Yeah, it's a strange one because whenever you say anything about Rosario, he seems to be criticised a lot. Probably not by PSV fans, but by Dutch football fans in general. He's not really highly rated. I think he's had an excellent season since Schmidt comes in. I think he's done really well. Did really well in the midfield today. I think him and Sangare as a partnership really bossed it. I think he's doing really well. I think that he's grown under Schmidt, and I think that we're seeing the best of him. And I agree, he's someone like Leroy Fair who just does his job perfectly well. That's why PSV can let someone like Jordan Hendricks go, because he's not needed, because they've got Sangare and Rosario, and both of them are much better players. Yeah,
good point. We've got one for Ajax's perspective here from Luke. Masri looked amazing out there. He thinks he's the best right back in the Eredivisie. Thoughts?
I think Mazraoui's having a solid season. Since Dest is gone, he's not really challenged. I think he did well today. I think that Max maybe didn't have a massive impact down the left-hand side as you would. I think he came close to a couple of free kicks, but Mazraoui did well to shut him down on the left. So he had a really good game. Best right back in the Eredivisie. It's tough. I think Gertrude at Feyenoord has...
Yeah, he's doing the business at the minute.
A shout to be that. So I think he's up there. He's one of the top 2 or 3. But no, for me, Dumfries would be ahead of him. when he plays well. And yeah, probably Geertruid as well, but I think that Mazraoui's doing well.
Yeah, very tough to pick out a best right back actually there, but Mazraoui on his day is a very good right back. I think Dumfries is the best defensively. And I think he was at fault for one of the goals because he tried to make a clearance and it didn't get very far. And then Ajax intercepted and I think they scored. I can't remember if that was the first one or the second one, but yeah, Dumfries is probably the best defensively. And then you've got Geertruida becoming steadily one of the best defenders in the Eredivisie. And Svensson at AZ is always someone that I rate quite highly. Another one here from Red Rum that he thinks that Ajax should sign Fozzie Mensah. So maybe an extra defender's needed at Ajax. Do you see them spending any more money this month, Mike?
I think that before the game, I think Mark Overmars did an interview where he was saying that some players might leave. I think that, I don't know who they'd be, maybe Alvarez or something like that. But I think that Fozzie Mensah would be a good signing for them. I think Skurs has come in for a lot of criticism so far this season. Maybe Botman was one that got away from them. And I know a lot of Ajax fans say Botman couldn't play their style, but I think he's been really good for Lille. And I think if you put him next to Blind, they might be a bit more solid. But yeah, I think if they're going to sign a defender, Fozzie Mensah would be a great option for them. There's not very many out there that probably would come as cheap as him. So yeah, I think that he'd be a good signing. Whereas other than that, I can't see Ajax signing anyone. Depends on the Quincy Promes situation, what happens with him. I think Overmars wouldn't want to sign anyone, but depends on if there's some outgoings. Brian Brobby is getting linked. Strangely, with Utrecht yesterday, that was one that I saw. He might leave. He's only got 6 months left on his deal. Traore's been linked with moves to England. Maybe he might go because Howard came in. But yeah, I think I wasn't expecting Ajax to do much business, but I think that maybe they will in the next coming weeks because Overmars hinted at it.
I think that it was a surprise that Sebastian Haller signed for Ajax. Certainly surprised me. We didn't think that much business would be going on at Ajax this month, and signing Haller, it seems to be that player that they kind of want to sign in the summer. I don't think they want to take Haller in the summer, but now that he's become available at West Ham, it's definitely a good time to try and get him into Amsterdam. As for PSV, Roger Schmidt actually gave his opinions and said that he thinks that PSV did their business in the summer and therefore don't need to sign anyone this month. He's pretty pleased with the players that he got. I mean, Mario Götze wasn't even around the squad today, and he could be their best player in time once he gets back to his best. And a comment here actually about Haller. He might have the same impact as Luke de Jong did at PSV. Enough quality up front to win the league for most. Agree with that? Fair point.
Yeah, I think you could. Yeah, that's a good point. And I agree that Ajax definitely have enough quality up front. Taking David Neres isn't there. Traore come back. Huntelaar's done really well in the past few weeks before he got injured. They've definitely got enough firepower to win the league. I think that Daley Blind gave an interesting interview before the game where he said that Ajax's biggest opponent for the title is themselves. They usually don't win games that they just don't concentrate. And you saw the one against Willem II when they drew 1-1. That's down to just a lack of concentration, a lack of effort being put in. So if they play their best between now and the end of the season, they should win the title. They've got enough in every single position of the pitch. It's just that lack of concentration when they've got a European game coming up where when they go away to some opponents, they just seem to take their eye off the ball, and then that's what hurts them.
So with Ajax and PSV drawing today, and I think that PSV is slightly ahead of Ajax at the moment on paper. Who would your money be on at the minute for winning the Eredivisie? And do Feyenoord and Vitesse realistically come into your consideration?
Feyenoord are a strange one because I think that Feyenoord could come into contention for it. I think that them getting Haps back, Ferre's back from injury, the players that they've got that are coming back into the squad, Sinisterra's back. Prato, I think, looked quite decent today. He didn't score his chances and he got poor ratings from some websites, but I think he did all right. I think once he gets up to speed, I think he'll be a good striker for them, which they needed because I think Jorgensen's been terrible. I know he took his goal well today, but they needed some injection up front. I think maybe Prato's signing might kickstart Jorgensen. Maybe it'll give him a bit more fight. So I think they definitely come into the running. I think Dick Advocaat will want to go out with a bang. So who knows what they could do. But for me, I think PSV are the favourites. I think that, as you said, they've still got Mario Götze to come back into it, and Marco van Ginkel as well. He's back on the bench today. I think if they get him fit, they've got so many options. The only real weakness I see is maybe in central defence. I think Tezzi and Buscaglia have been great. But if one of them maybe gets injured, then Baumgartel comes in, or Vierhaver, who I don't think are up to scratch. But yeah, I think that for me, PSV are favourites, because I think Ajax will maybe drop points in some games that they should win. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how PSV do against Feyenoord, and that's going to be the big games for them. I think AZ are out of it. I think that too many draws. I think yesterday again is so poor at finishing. I don't know what's happening up front with Boadu, but yesterday just was terrible again. I think they just lack that finishing touch. So yeah, I think it's a freeway race between Feyenoord, Ajax, and PSV. But if I had to put money on it, I'd put it on PSV at the moment.
Yeah, I think that PSV would just shade it at the moment. I think that this month will be pivotal for seeing what's going to be going on for the rest of the season. I think that after January, we'll probably have a really good idea who it's going to be. If Ajax can overcome those challenges, for example, beating Twente this week, beating Feyenoord at the weekend again, that would really set the standard. And I think that PSV would find it quite hard to chase after that point. Or it would be the opposite, and PSV will maybe get a few points ahead and suddenly feel really confident of winning the title. With Feyenoord, they're defensively so good at the moment. And even though they're really quite boring to watch, they have been keeping so many clean sheets. And they don't really concede more than one goal in a game. There was a time where they were conceding quite a few, but now they've got some sort of consistency about their defensive line. Actually, they're more favoured for getting the title. And amongst all of this, we haven't really talked about Vitesse yet. However, I did watch them against Heracles yesterday, and I didn't think that they were really that standout. I know they have had some really good performances so far this season, but for me, watching that game and also watching them against RZ, when admittedly they were quite tired after a lot of games, they didn't give a lot of quality. And I know that Tanana is their best player. They just didn't really get him on the ball enough. And if something happens to Bazur or Tanana with an injury, that hampers things even more. For me, they just won't win enough games. And they just, if a team sets up to try and defend against them, I think they're going to find it really hard to try and win the game. Which is a shame, because at the start of the season, they look really fresh and something that a lot of teams were going to find quite tricky to beat this season. And I'm sure they will have a good season, but they're not in the hunt for a top 3 place, in my opinion. They'll fall away within the coming months. You agree? Yeah. I mean, they just, it's the back 5 which was working so well, but now it seems like they're just lacking a cutting edge.
Yeah, I think that watching the game yesterday, I just think that I'm surprised that Broya didn't come on. I think he's done well, but he wasn't brought on. I think he could start for them, but it seems to be Darfalau and Openda up front, with Boytink coming off the bench. But yeah, I think that they'll fall away. When they play some tougher teams, they'll lose some games, and then they'll finish about 4th or 5th, in my opinion.
Just still a great season for them. We had a comment as well about who they think would win the title, and Luke says that he thinks Ajax will win the league, but thinks that PSV will go further in the Europa League. That could still have an impact on the whole thing. Which team's still going in the Europa League, because it does mean you'll have to play 2 games a week for like the rest of the season if you're going to stay in European competition. And I don't know who's better set up to do that. Ajax have got a pretty decent squad nowadays, a lot of young players around the fringes, and PSV have got a really deep, strong squad. But if they sense that they could win the title, then surely they're going to choose that over the Europa League. So what do you think with that having a twist in the title race?
Yeah, I think that both teams have really tough games coming up in Europa League. Ajax got to face Lille. That's a tough game. PSV, I think, have Olympiacos. Both of them could end up going out next round. Hopefully they don't, because that'd be bad for the coefficient. But I think that PSV have the easier game. But I think that squad depth depends on rotation. I think that Schmidt's better rotation than Ten Hag is. So yeah, I think that it'll come down to who has the deepest squad, but both of them have very good squads. So we'll see. It depends. Again, if they do well in the first leg and they can rest players in the second one, then maybe it doesn't really matter that much and it won't have that big an impact. But I think that end of January we'll see where Ajax are at after all these tough games coming up. And I think this will be a telling month for them. But yeah, I think it's going to be tight either way. The table right now is so close between the top four. So yeah, it's great for the league that the title race is going to be so good. Again, last year we had Ajax against AZ. This year we've got maybe a three-way battle between Ajax, PSV, and Feyenoord. So yeah, it's going to be intriguing to watch it for the next couple of months.
Very true. Well, Ajax 2, PSV 2, it was a great game, and hopefully many more to come this month. Like we were saying, if you enjoyed this and you would like some more of these post-match reactions to the upcoming really top games in the Eredivisie, do drop us a like on this video, and do leave us a comment too about what you thought of the game, whether you want more of these videos, or who you think will win the title this season. Did today give you a really good indication as to who will be lifting the Eredivisie title come the end of the season? And finally, of course, we've still got our wristbands here. We're running out of them, but if you would like one, we've left a link in our description of the video, and here they are. You can still get one. If you do get one of these, you're supporting what we do at football-oranje.com, enabling us to go further as to what we can do as a website. Thanks everyone for listening. And Mike, any last comments for today's game?
Great game, great advert for the Eredivisie. Hopefully the rest of the big games in the coming weeks are to this high standard. And yeah, I think that we're in for a great title race, and long live the Eredivisie title race, because it's just a great league and more people should watch it. I think it doesn't get the credit it deserves, and we're going to see some great games in the coming weeks.
Always love watching the Eredivisie. Even better when you can go to the actual stadiums and watch the players up front for real. Of course, can't do that at the moment, but still a great league to watch. Lots of entertainment. And also, if you're a fan of the Netherlands, you get to watch a lot of players come through who are going to ultimately play for the national team. And there's plenty on show today who could be in Frank de Boer's considerations for the Euro squad. So yeah, long may it continue. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching, and thanks Mike for joining me. And bye for now, everybody.
Bye.